Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be looking at the elusive and frustrating and sometimes annoying and incredibly time-consuming first chapter. Let it first be said that there are very distinct differences between a first chapter and a prologue. Sometimes you don't need a prologue, but if you are going to include one, then, much like a first chapter, there has to be a reason for it to be there, there has to be some introduction to the story, and it has to have some kind of hook or problem. But the differences are that a prologue is a lot smaller and takes place outside of the main story, whether it's in a different time period, focusing on a different group of people. It might not be all that relevant, but it's going to have a few hints to what's to come with your main characters. The first chapter is the one that kickstarts your story, where it focuses on your group of characters, focuses on your adventure. This is where the meat is. Why is it so bright all of a sudden? Oh my god. This video is going to be looking at the myths and the truths behind the first chapter, things that people say you need but you don't really need to worry too much about, and the things that you absolutely do need. I'm hoping this comes as some help to you. However, if it ends up going the opposite way and I end up stressing you out even more, then I am so sorry. I aim to help, but sometimes it doesn't always come across that way. Let's just get rid of one massive myth straight off the bat, shall we? The first sentence. God, how many times have you heard you must have the best first sentence out there? Your first sentence must grip a reader by the throat and drag them into the story. Your first sentence must be so good that it just gives a hint of what's to come in the future. It must be flawless. That is a lot of pressure to put on one sentence. You don't need a killer first sentence. Don't get me wrong, there are some books out there that do have great first sentences that just draw you in because they're pretty, or they're funny, or they just flip whatever expectations you have on its head. I mean, I've read one book where the first line is, "Hey buddy, can you help me hide a body?" And I'm just instantly like, what? There's been other ones where a first sentence has described the beauty of a room only by its smell, and that was... I need to find that book again, actually. But there are some great sentences out there, great first sentences, but it's very rare to find the most flawless one for your story, and you spend so long trying to find it, and you end up going weeks, days even, and you haven't written anything else because you're so focused on this one thing that is going to be a fleeting moment in the giant reading experience. You do not need to worry about the first sentence. What you need to worry about is the first page. It is nearly impossible to capture an entire tone of a story in a first sentence. However, you can get a basic idea of a writing style, of a character's mindset, or of a location from the first page. If you want to open up with a fun conversation between two friends that shows without telling their relationship, maybe it shows a struggle of some kind, maybe it is a description of a mysterious room that someone has happened upon, and you instantly want to know why these characters are there, why is this room hidden, what is going on. You want to know because you have had the time to take in the page and therefore the tone, and then you can draw yourself in that way. It just gives yourself a bit more wiggle room, and then if you want to go back and try and focus on the first sentence once the rest of the book is done, then by all means you can, because then you have more time to reflect and edit and bounce a few ideas back and forth because you've got the general idea out first. Also, something you need to do is introduce your main characters. Now, in my story, in Branded, I have 6 main characters, which is very tricky to introduce all of them in the first chapter. So I introduced 3. They are living separate lives at that point, so it is, broken up into segments. Each segment is from a different person's perspective. I've introduced the 3 because the other 3 aren't relevant at that time. They grow to become main characters later on, and that is perfectly okay. As long as you've introduced a good chunk of your main characters, or at least the main character that's going to be your main focus in the first chapter, then you're good. But it's all very well just saying you need to introduce the characters. You need to have these characters in some kind of development. You need to you need to put them in a situation where the reader can get a feel for their character and their tone. They need to know their aims. They don't necessarily need to know where they're from right now, because you do not want to go into an entire world of exposition in your first chapter, because that is wasting time and honestly is wasting people's interest. Give a vague idea of what your character's aims and goals are. If they're in a shitty job, do they want to find a better one? If they're in a bad relationship, do they want to get out, they just don't know how? If they have a power of some kind, do they want to grow in the ranks, or do they want to shield away and hide their power? You need to have this kind of character starting point in the first chapter in order to make them relatable, and when they're relatable, you want to read more about them. In the same way, you need to sort of get across a vague idea of the world, not necessarily an entire exposition dump, because no one likes reading those. We want to get a feel of the world that is directly around this character. Are they travelling somewhere? If so, where are they travelling? How are they travelling? What is the weather like at that specific point? Are they on their way somewhere? If so, where are they going and why? And do they feel like this goal that they have, does it complement or disagree with the world around them? Let's go back to the power example. Do they feel like they have a power and they want to climb the ranks? Are they in a position in this world where doing so would be a perfectly normal thing? Like, oh yeah, you can go to this school, you can get a job. Are the opportunities to grow available to them? If so, then it complements their goals and they want to progress. So you're like, okay, there's a system in play. Fair enough, let's go. However, on the opposite side, does it contrast with the world around them? Do people with powers not necessarily exist, or are they not supposed to exist in this world? Are people with power already meant to be higher up? So the idea of someone with power starting off so low wanting to climb, is that a bad thing? You need to give these little snippets of information about the world without describing the entire world. And most importantly, how it relates to your character, because if it doesn't relate to your character, then it's not important right now. I fully believe that you can have a story where not a lot happens, but if the characters have the chance to develop and grow into different people, then you're going to have an amazing story, because the reader is relating, they're putting themselves in their shoes, they are trying to agree or disagree with the characters, and they're able to see relationships form later down the line. If you don't have that relatability and sense of intrigue with your characters at the beginning, then you're not going to have much intrigue for the world either. A lot of people say that in the first chapter you need a hook, you need the exciting incident, you need the big thing to kick off the story in the first chapter, otherwise no one's going to be interested. I don't agree with this at all. I feel like having such a big hook that early on makes the story feel rushed and makes it feel like you're just eager to get the story over and done with, rather than enjoying it for what it is in that moment and giving the character a chance to have some kind of development before you snatch it all away again. You don't have to have the hook, but you must have a problem. And what I mean is, like I said before with the character aims and goals, is there a problem? If a character is in a crappy job and they want to quit, what is the problem? Is being unemployed a sign of treason in this world? Do they not have the chance to progress into a better job? Are they trying to hide something and that's why they need to stay in this job even though they want to quit? You don't have to do the big reveal, you just have to foreshadow and have problems littered out that are going to come back later. If you even want to get a little bit juicy, you can throw in a red herring in there, but you know that the red herrings are a topic for another day. There must be an idea planted in your character's head in order to want to change the way things are, because if they don't want to change, then the story's not going to go anywhere. There has to be a problem that the character is facing and they think, oh, if I could only do this, or if this was only working in a different way, then things would be so much better for me. That is your problem, that is your need to change, and you've already introduced some kind of foreshadowing, but you haven't said whether this change is going to happen, and if it does happen, you haven't said whether it's going to work out or not, and you've created intrigue because you've given a window into the character's mindset, you've made them slightly believable, you've given them a goal, and you really don't know how it's going to go for them. One of the main questions to ask yourself when it comes to writing a first chapter is, why would the readers care? If you're introducing a character, why should the readers care about them? You need to give a reason, whether it's through their personality or the actions they're doing in that time. If you're going to give a description of a building that the characters are in or the characters are going to, you have to ask yourself, why would the reader care about this place? Is it decrepit and in ruins and there's whispers of mysterious goings on there, or, spooks? Or is it absolutely stunning and pristine and, again, mysterious, and there's just something drawing you in? Why do we care? What is the atmosphere? That is the main thing with writing a first chapter, is you don't need to worry so much about hooks and exciting incidences and big secrets revealed. You just need to worry about atmosphere, because if there's a strong atmosphere with a strong character, then we are going to be hooked either way. And then you can deal with another hook later on, which will be the exciting incident. So really, a first chapter, even though it is still very hard to write and very hard to get your head around, it's not as daunting, because first of all, you don't need to worry about the first line, you don't need to worry about the big exciting incident. By all means, you can have the exciting incident and the hook in the first chapter if you want to. That's just a personal preference of mine to put it in a little bit later, because you give them the characters time to attach themselves to the reader, but that is neither here nor there. The point is that you can focus on character development and character goals. When it comes to stuff like moving on to chapter 2, then you can have your exciting incident, then you can have things really starting to blow up, you can have more problems starting to emerge as more characters get introduced and we're starting to see more of the world. The first chapter is a taster. Much like the prologue is a taster of what might be coming, because of something that happened way back when, the first chapter is a taste of what's going to be coming for the adventure, for the main story. You don't need to put so much pressure on yourself. Make it matter, make us care. And I know that is easier said than done, but you just need to keep asking yourself those two questions. Why does this matter right now, and why should my reader care about it? Characters, location, atmosphere, power sets. We need to care in order to be invested. Foreshadowing is going to be your best friend in this one, honestly. Foreshadowing and red herrings, because it just gives so many more plot lines and so many more opportunities, and it doesn't confuse the reader because we haven't really got an idea of what we're getting ourselves in for yet, and that's the time to really play around. And honestly, I could go on so many more tangents on the first chapter, and I might do at a later date. If I've missed anything, please let me know. But yeah, it all boils down to those main things. You don't need a great first sentence, you just need a great first page. So it gives you more wiggle room and it gives you more time to present the character and give a vague idea of what they want and why they can't have it. And therefore that creates a problem, which then creates atmosphere, which then can be led onto how it relates to the rest of the world around them in that moment. There are so many ways that you can work this formula around. You can start off with the location that then whittles down to the person, which then relates to the goals, which then circles back around to the location. You can have other characters to sort of show conflict of interest and from different classes maybe. There are so many combinations here and you can just run wild with it. And that's the thing, you want to run wild with it, because the more wild and more fun you're having with it, then the more the reader is going to be invested, because we're going to get that tone. Tone and atmosphere and character. Those are your three. Those are your three. So I'm gonna leave this video here before I go all the way back round to the beginning again, but I hope this helped. I'm sorry if it confused you more. I know I do have a habit of rambling. If I've missed anything, please let me know, and I will see if I can make another video later down the line where I go into a little bit more detail. But until then, hope you're staying safe, I hope you're doing well, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, my scribblers.